Hi, I'm Dr. Tommy Taylor. I'm the Dean of Auxiliary Services and the Chief Law Enforcement Officer for Shelton State Community College's campuses. I've been doing this for about 30 years. It's emergency preparedness and safety and security and operations is something I'm really passionate about. I was an MP in the military for a while and was a city police officer with the city of Tuscaloosa for a while, and then joined Shelton State, like I said, almost 30 years ago, and had been basically involved in this type of arena since then. But we're going to talk about some things today that I think are really important for you to hear. They're things that are not only pertinent to your experiences here at Shelton State Community College, but are also pertinent to whatever you do wherever you are, whether that's work, church, home, a movie, a restaurant, it doesn't matter. Because when it comes to emergencies, the way you respond is the same no matter where you are. We handle things here very seriously. Again, it's something that I'm not just passionate about, but something that we're committed to. In operations and safety and security and law enforcement, we really just have one basic rule for all of you, and that's for y'all to have an environment that's safe and conducive for you to learn in, and for your faculty members like Ms. Catherine to have a safe and conducive teaching environment in which to teach in. So we took that very seriously, whether that's having security on site, having law enforcement like myself on site, making sure the lights in the parking lot are lit. All those things fall under my wheelhouse, and we take those things very seriously. One of the most important things, and I always hammer this home really quickly when I start this lecture, and that's make sure in Campus Cast that you are in the Campus Cast system. And all this information we're going to talk about today is on these handouts that I gave you. It's also going to be on the website under the Emergency Preparedness tab. But everything that we're going to discuss today is going to be on those handouts, so you have those there with you. But Campus Cast is the primary vehicle we use to notify you of everything at Shelton State Community College. If I needed to send out a notification telling you that we have a utility issue at the Fred campus, the Fred campus is closed, Campus Cast is how we're going to do that. If I need to notify you and tell you that there's an ice storm approaching West Alabama, that we're going to delay opening tomorrow morning until 11 a.m., Campus Cast is the primary way we would do that. So I cannot stress enough how important it is for you to make sure that your Campus Cast information is not only in there, but is correct, down to your cell number, your home number. You can add unlimited number of other individuals in that system. If you want your mom, your dad, your husband, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, whoever you want in that system, you can add them in there as well, so to make sure those notifications get to you in a timely manner. So Campus Cast is the key. It's really important. Now we'll talk about some emergencies and incidents here and how we respond to those at the college. And what would you guys think would be the #1 emergency we face in the state of Alabama? What do y'all think that might be?
Tornadoes.
Tornadoes, certainly. Anything to do with the weather. You know, it just depends on where you live. I tell every class I get to speak to, and I'm very fortunate to get to speak to almost every freshman orientation group over the course of a year. It's about 2,000 students altogether. But my kids live all over the country. My son lives in Oregon, and where he lives in the mountains of Oregon, they have a lot of snow. And we were out walking one morning while I was out there, and he said, "Daddy, look around, what do you notice?" And I said, "Well, it's beautiful, the snow's beautiful, the icicles are beautiful, all that kind of stuff." And he said, "No, Daddy, look a little closer." And I looked, and there was a school bus about 50 yards in front of us, and kids were getting on the school bus, and there was a foot of snow on the ground. He said, "This is how you know you're not in Alabama. They're still going to school." It's true. We don't know what to do here in the South when bad weather happens. Now, we know about tornadoes and severe thunderstorms, but when it comes to snow, we don't handle that so well. But what we do here at Shelton State, I try to make sure that we can keep you in class as much as you can and not limit the amount of time you have to be out of class based on the weather. Now, when I was growing up, we handled things very differently. But weather forecasting and meteorology has come a long way in the last 20 years. For instance, in Hale County, where I'm from, if there was a tornado warning in Greensboro and a tornado was spotted, whether it was on the ground or in the clouds, moving towards Demopolis, the kids at Moundville Elementary School, who are 25 miles away in the sunshine, still got back in the building from the playground and got in the hallway. The tornado was nowhere close to anybody, but that's still what we did. We don't do that anymore. What we do now is we monitor the weather more closely, and if you'll notice now with the weather forecasting, for instance, they'll tell you the storm will be in Abernat at 10:11 a.m. The storm will be in West Blockton at 10:16 a.m. The storm will be approaching the Jefferson County line at 10:22 a.m. They can just about pinpoint where those storms are going, and certainly storms can still have a mind of their own, but it's much more confined than what it used to be. So if we have a tornado warning in the county of Tuscaloosa, and it's for north side, and that tornado is going towards Walker County, we don't need to shelter in place here at Shelton State Community College here at the Fred campus. We don't need to disrupt teaching and learning in order to do that. when we're certain that storm is going another direction. Now, should we need to do that, the rules are simple. They're the same way here that they would be if you were at work or home or church. We're going to notify you through CampusCast if it's during instructional hours. I'm not going to send you a CampusCast at 2 in the morning because there's a tornado warning. What I want you to do is make sure you're weather aware. I tell students all the time, and faculty and staff, you get you a weather app on your phone, you can get 5 or 6 of them, they don't cost anything, and you can get notifications in a timely manner from the National Weather Service, from ABC 3340, VUA, whoever you choose. They have notification systems in place that'll keep you updated regardless of where you are. We use some of those same systems here. But here what we would do, we would send out a CampusCast notification. Security would also be mobilized to notify you in the hallways with megaphones, those kinds of things. You would make your way to the first floor because the rules are simple when it comes to tornadoes and how you respond to them. You want to be on the first floor of wherever you are, the centermost part of that building, well away from doors, windows, and glass. On the Fred campus, there's not any building at all that I would consider to be a danger to be in during a tornado. Those buildings are old and they're cinder block and they're really, really strong and sturdy. The rules would still apply. You'd want to be in the center part of those hallways, but you could be safe in any of those buildings. Here on this campus, you want to be on the first floors. That's the hallways that are directly up under us, the parallel and perpendicular hallways directly beneath us. If you're on the other side of the building, if you're on the music side where fine arts and mathematics and things are taught, same hallways there, get in those hallways on the first floor. Normally, as y'all know from living in the South, tornado warnings are short-lived, 15, 20, 30 minutes tops typically, unless there's a line or a cell coming through that has strong storms in it that doesn't last long. We'll get you in those hallways, stay there until the time comes to get the all clear. We'll issue an all clear and get you back in your classrooms. So that's the only emergency we're going to talk about where your primary responsibility is to stay inside. Everything else is going to require you to get outside. But just remember, first floor, bottom part, center part of the building, well away from doors, windows, and glass. And again, that's true no matter where you are. Your apartment, your home, your job, wherever, those rules are the same. So that's tornadoes and severe weather. Sometimes we do have to cancel class. Sometimes we do have to delay openings. When we do those things, we will send that out over CampusCast. That's how you'll be notified. But it also goes on to our social media sites and also on our website. We also contact local news media outlets to let them know about the changes in our scheduling. So I would tell you have a multi-front approach to monitoring the weather. You be responsible for keeping up with the weather yourself via your phone or ever how you choose to keep up with it, and then also monitor the website, CampusCast, and those types of vehicles as well. So that's weather. Other emergencies, let's say there's a fire alarm, and just for those of you that will be here next Thursday afternoon, there's a really good chance next Thursday afternoon between 2 and 3 o'clock that we're going to have a fire drill here. We normally have about one a year. Sometimes we have false fire alarms, and we count that as a drill because everybody has to evacuate the building. But we're going to have a planned one, I think, next Thursday if our system is where it needs to be. We just got to make sure with some final testing that it's good. But we'll have a fire alarm drill next Thursday, and you guys will get to experience the alarm going off, the buzzing going off, those kinds of things. And what you need to do, regardless of when it is, always assume that every fire alarm is a real fire. The odds of this campus catching on fire or the Fred campus catching on fire is extremely low. The buildings are not constructed in a way where they burn. They just don't. So just make sure you know where you are. The key is knowing where you are. Now, how many of you right now know where you are? Does anybody know where they are? What room number are you in? 2355. That's excellent. That's excellent. And even though people will watch this video and they might not be in 2355, they will understand knowing where you are is critical. Because if you're in 2355 and a fire alarm happens, you know how to get out of this room and get to the nearest exit. You know if you go out that door on that side of the classroom, if you go left or right, you're going to hit exits. The closest one, if you go to this door right here and walk out that door and turn to the right, you're going to run into an exit and go straight downstairs. The key with fire alarms is to get out of the building safely away so that you're in a safe place where when fire trucks do dispatch and respond that you're out of their way and everything. Normally fire drills that we have here and fire alarms don't last long, 10, 15, 20 minutes tops typically. So give us a few minutes whether it's a drill or a false alarm. Give us a few minutes to make sure we get everything handled, make sure the situation is the way it needs to be, and then we'll let you know when it's time to come back in the building. But the key with fire alarms is paying attention to that audible and that visual alarm and finding the nearest safest exit and going out that way to the outside. So that's tornadoes and severe weather, that's fire. A third issue is a utility issue. Sometimes we have power outages. Y'all know that. You have them at your home. You'll have them here as well. I was actually teaching a semester or two ago downstairs in a computer lab teaching orientation, and I got to this part of my lecture regarding power outages and utilities, and I kid you not, as soon as I said, should there be a power outage, the power went off. And everybody in that class, and there's about 35 people in there, everybody in that class thought, he did that on purpose. And I promise you I really didn't. I would not do that to the school. There was an issue with Alabama Power. They fixed it. Our generator, our backup systems came online within about 5 seconds. The emergency lights came on. 10 seconds later, the power was back on. But sometimes we do have utility issues, and what I ask students and faculty and staff to do is when the power does go off, and it will, periodically, whether it's storm related or whether they're working online or something, it will go off. When that happens, give us a few minutes within the administrative section at the college to try to make sure we know what the issue is, because I promise you we're not going to leave you sitting here for hours. We're not going to do that to you. We're not going to do that to our faculty members. But let us find out what the issue is with Alabama Power. Is the power going to be back on in 15 minutes or 3 hours and 15 minutes? Those are going to enter into our decision-making processes so that we know how long to keep you. But give us a few minutes. But the key, yet again, goes back to so many other emergencies. Know where you are so you know how to get out. Know where your exit points are. So that's severe weather, that's fire, that's utilities. Let's talk about medical emergencies really quickly. The college really does not have a medical nurse or doctor on site. Most community colleges, we don't have things like that. We do have a nursing program here, but that's not the same thing. I can tell you for minor emergencies, and we have them almost every day in the technical programs, welders are going to cut their hands, machine shop students are going to get cut, electricians are going to get cut using conduit or using wire. Those things happen. They have first aid kits inside those areas. If you have a serious medical emergency or you're around someone who has a medical emergency, I tell students to always do the same thing. Just dial 911. Give them the information and then call myself and call the security officers here, and all that information is on that handout. But yet again, knowing where you are is the key. It is so important, because if it's myself, let's say I'm having chest pains and you're concerned about me, what I don't want you doing is not knowing where you are and the fire truck and the paramedics pull up at the gym and I'm on the theater side of the building. So know where you are. Apply that same mentality to everywhere you go from now on, not out of fear, but just know where you are. When you're in the movie theater, in the back of your mind, have you a plan? You know what, if something were to happen in here right now, I'm going to make note. There's an exit there. There's 2 exits behind me. When I go out either one of those doors, I'm going to make myself a mental note of whether I need to turn left or turn right. Because typically when emergencies happen, other than the weather, they happen really fast, and things go from really, really normal to really, really bad really, really fast. There's not an app for that. It just happens. So make sure you understand where you are in respect to both the hallways, the classrooms. If you're at work, where are you in work? If you're in church, what part of the building are you in church? The whole 9 yards. If you're in the grocery store, just make sure you know where you are. It's critical. So that's those types of emergencies. Let's talk about one that's really more difficult to talk about, but is one you read about in the newspapers and see online all the time now, and that's active shooting and active assailants. I can tell you this much, certainly we've always had active shootings and we've always had active assailants. That's nothing new. They do tend to happen more often now than what they used to, but the main thing I would want to convey to y'all is that not so much that they happen more often than they used to, but this. Because now when anything happens, it's conveyed worldwide immediately. So what used to take 2 or 3 days to find out and get on the news now is instantaneous. And certainly most active shootings and active assailants are not like the one that you read about or heard about in Las Vegas last fall. You know, that was a horrible, horrible thing. But when it comes to active shootings, there's just some simple things to remember. Most states and most schools have protocols in place on how to deal with active shootings. And yet again, this is another emergency. I would tell you that the rules that I'm going to talk about here are the same ones you would apply regardless of where you found yourself should something happen. And that's run, hide, fight. That's a Homeland Security, U.S. Department of Homeland Security protocol on active shooting response, and it's something that I teach all the time. It's something that I'm certified in, as well as several other active shooter concepts as well. So there's several different approaches to it. But I truly think run, hide, fight is one of the simplest ones to remember, because you don't have to remember abbreviations and acronyms and then what they mean. Because your number one responsibility when you encounter an active assailant is to create distance between you and the problem. That's always your number one response. Run, run, run. Yet again, I go back to knowing where you are. Because again, if there's a tornado and you have an app on your phone's going to go off and you're going to get a notification, well, there's a tornado coming. If there's a fire alarm, well, that alarm on that wall is going to go off and you're going to know, well, there might be a fire, I need to get out of the building. When it comes to active assailants and armed intruders, there's not a warning. It just happens, and it happens really, really quickly. The average active shooting incident lasts less than 3 minutes. It is a very, very short, directed activity. Most active shootings that you read about are not the type that you read about in Las Vegas. They're not the type where someone goes into a nightclub or a bar or a restaurant or a movie theater and hurts as many people as they can as quickly as they can. Those do happen. I wish they didn't, but they do. But that's not the majority of active shootings that take place in the country today. Most of those are domestic violence related and relational related. Ex-husband, ex-wife, custody issue with children, those types of things. Sometimes it's employment issues. Someone gets terminated, they don't respond and react well, they snap, and they end up harming other people there. Typically it's directed at individuals, specific individuals, and not just people at random. Again, those do happen, but that's not the norm. But your number one response is to run, no matter where you are. Your second response, number two, just like the protocol says, is hide. Run first, hide and barricade if you can. If you're in a classroom, if you're in a church in a room, if you're at work in a room, you know, if you can't run and get away, and sometimes it's difficult to know where a hall that might be safe is. It's difficult to know which direction to go because unless you've been around gunfire, you don't really know where it's coming from. And people are just in chaos. It's not like a drill. It's very different. It's just true chaos is the best way to describe it. But you hide and you barricade. If you were in this classroom here, there's enough furniture in these classrooms to barricade those doors until law enforcement like myself or other law enforcement officers arrive. Buy some time, because law enforcement, the average response time is 3 or 4 minutes. They're going to be here quickly as well. But yet again, you got to know where you are so that when you're dialing 911 and all this is happening at one time, notifying 911, here's where I am, here's what I can see, here's what I can hear, here's what I'm seeing outside the door. All that information becomes really important as you're passing that on to dispatchers. And this building alone is 600,000 square feet. 3 floors, over 100 classrooms and labs, 80 entrance points, exit points. It's a huge facility just in this building alone. So knowing where you are is not just important when you're trying to get downstairs for a tornado. Knowing where you are is not just important when you're trying to get downstairs and outside the building for a fire or for a utility outage. Knowing where you are is important no matter what the emergency is. So start paying attention to little things. I told the class right before y'all, when you walk into a classroom from now on, take note of the door number. Where is it? What's the room number? When you're in the grocery store, take note of where you are, what's going on around you. Just little things, make note of them just to have in the back of your mind. Run first, hide, barricade second. Fighting back against the assailant is your last option. Sometimes that's the only option you have. It's not the first option, it's the last option. And fighting back reverts back to rule number 1, which was what? Y'all are paying attention. What's rule number 1? Run, exactly. Run, hide, fight. That's the protocol in place for the state of Alabama, predominantly when it comes to active assailants. It's really important to know those things. Some things that you can do to help be more aware of what's going on around you, and I tell this to all students, faculty, and staff every year. If you see something, say something. That's something law enforcement officers tell people all the time, because 90% of all active shootings honestly never take place. And the reason they never take place is because someone like y'all saw someone that looked out of place or did something out of place, and they notified the authorities, and the authorities intervened and stopped it before it ever started. That's where most get started and stopped, is well before it ever happens. So if you see something, say something. If you're in the library and something looks out of place, let someone know. Notify security, notify myself. If you're in the Chick-fil-A line downstairs getting lunch and something looks out of place, let somebody know something. If you're in the parking lot and something looks out of place, let somebody know something so that we can get involved in the situation and see what it is and determine what we need to do. It's very important. Those are really important things to do. Something else, and that's making sure you understand that in the state of Alabama, since 2014, it's against the law, an Attorney General's opinion, to bring any weapon inside any school in the state of Alabama. That's the same law and same rule whether it's an elementary school, a middle school, a high school, or a college, public or private. unless you're a law enforcement officer, you cannot bring a weapon inside a school for any reason. Now sometimes I get students who say, well, if I have a weapon in my car and if something were to happen, I'd have time to go out and get my weapon and come back in and help. Now the problem with that mindset, and I'm not telling you that doesn't happen sometimes, but the problem with that mindset is I can tell you from my own perspective as a law enforcement officer, when they arrive on the scene, oftentimes they don't know who the good guys are and the bad guys are. And here you have someone running from the parking lot with a weapon, and you can just kind of put in the back of your mind the scenario that could play out. So you could end up getting hurt while you're trying to help. So don't bring weapons to school. Just don't do that. Don't bring weapons to school. You're very fortunate here at Shelton State Community College. This is an extremely safe campus environment that we have here and at the Fred campus, our Demopolis sites as well. Extremely safe. I have a report that I have to fill out. It's called the Clery Report every year. It's mandated by federal law. When I fill that information out, I actually have to plug in numbers in a column on crimes that occur on campus based on different categories. Almost every single category we have every year is 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. We're very fortunate. We work really hard to keep it that way. Part of that goes back to y'all though, where if you see something, say something. It's extremely important. So just make sure you're aware you're in a safe place. We do everything we can to keep it that way. Make sure you understand that one of the things you do hear about that's on the rise on campus, on college campuses around the nation, and that's sexual assaults. I'm not going to tell you that they don't happen. I will tell you this, in all my career at Shelton State Community College, we have never had a sexual assault reported on any campus of the community college here at Shelton State, ever, not one. Having said that now, I work with sexual assault survivors almost every single semester. I serve on a sexual assault response team along with the Dean of Students, Amanda Harbison, and Miss Norkina Reeves. And we have what's called a SART, a sexual assault response team. And when students come to us, or they go to their faculty member, or to a coach, or to their SOAR advisor, and they say, hey, this happened to me last week, whether it's at home or at a party or wherever, then they'll notify us, and we very confidentially, discreetly meet with that student, advise them of the resources that are available to them. That's one of the handouts you have. They're free of charge. We don't even discuss the names with my president. Those individual names are kept very confidential. We just want you to be aware of the resources that are there. So you want to make sure you understand that the options are there. The college is committed to your safety here, but should something happen, whether it's here or somewhere else, let somebody know so that we can make that information available to you and assist you. Another change that's taken place since the time you've been here over the summer is effective May the 29th of 2018, Shelton State Community College's campus in their entirety went smoke-free, tobacco-free. So that includes cigarettes, cigars, vaping, chewing tobacco, what you would call dip, anything like that, any tobacco or any vaping product whatsoever. Those are all banned now by the Code of Conduct, and you cannot do that on campus anywhere on any of the campuses. What we normally do to begin within a semester, we'll approach that the same way we approach parking tickets. There's a grace period at the beginning of each term where if we see that happening, we address it and we tell you that's against policy, you can't do that. Follow up after that. If you do it again, you're going to get a ticket just like you do for a parking ticket. You do have to pay those tickets because if you don't, you can't register or get your transcript for the next semester, so it's really important. One of those handouts I gave you has the policy on the back and the signage that we use on the front. That information will be available on the website as well. But the main things I want you to take away from the conversation today, from what we're discussing today, is just knowing what to do should something happen. Knowing what to do should something happen somewhere else, not just here but anywhere, just so that you're prepared. It's really important to make sure that CampusCast information is in there. Make sure you log into CampusCast using the same user ID, email address that you use for My Shelton, the same password. It's really simple now. If you have any issues at all with logging in, we'll have a help desk ticket process that you can send that. It goes to Ms. Sharon Brown, my secretary, and we'll help you with your login issues. But CampusCast is the key because we literally can send a notification out to you in less than 3 minutes. So it's really important that you have that information in the system. When you enroll, you're automatically enrolled in CampusCast, but it's up to you to make sure your information is correct that's in it. Okay? Any questions at all? Well, thank y'all for letting me talk to you today. I appreciate it. It's good information to know, and if I can ever help you or any of my areas can help you, please just let us know, okay? Thank y'all.